inside the United States, but outside the United States. And China, at one point in time, they had $2.3 trillion in surplus. Now I think they reduced that surplus to about 1.6, 1.7 trillion. Still has a lot of dollars. But this phenomenon of de-dollarization, and I'm going to show you this. These are the red areas are countries which are not necessarily using the dollar anymore. Okay? So you can see that you have half of the world. Now in Africa, it's also the dollar is not that. So I would actually consider even Africa as, yeah. So most of these other countries are actually not using the US dollar. As in Australia, of course, they have their own currency. But you can see how this de-dollarization process is impacting the whole world. So let me go back. In 2016, China was the #1 economy in the world in terms of GDP based on purchasing power parity. The United States was the second. You will see that by 2050, so 2050 is only 30 years from now, and time flies very, very fast. So by 2050, now you have India emerging as the second economy in the world. And the United States is actually going to go down to being the third economy. So now you have another. You may see here what you're going to see here: Brazil, Russia, India, China. These are the 4 of the components of the Brazil, Russia, India, China. BRICS.
Yeah.
Only South Africa is actually missing from there. And I can tell you there is another country which actually China could.
South Africa.
South Africa is in the BRICS, but there is another country which is not included here. And that country is actually a rising country economically, and there's a big influence, is actually Turkey. Turkey is a country that is rapidly emerging, and China can also develop very strong economic relationships with Turkey. I was in Istanbul this summer. The growth there is phenomenal as well. So very, very important. So you see now how important a country like India is going to become over the next 2-3 decades. That's why I think China needs to shift the focus. Not completely, gradually, and everything should be done in steps. Everything should be done incrementally, yeah, not radical leaps, just incremental steps, because again, you have the possibility of shifting into an economy with 1.3 billion people, which will definitely further enhance the Chinese economic development. But there's got to be a mutual benefit. See, there's got to be a mutual benefit in this process. It cannot be just a one-way street. It's got to be a two-way street. All right, so let's go to this one. This is a. I've taken this from China. Long-term thinking is the best short-term strategy. And earlier we talked a little bit about planning, and planning requires long-term thinking. Strategic thinking, it means exactly that. Strategic thinking means long-term thinking. And this is what we need now to realize and to recognize, that the whole world is shifting. And interestingly, these are tectonic shifts, major shifts. These are not just minor shifts. These are big shifts. And only those who are able to position themselves at the beginning, at the forefront of these trends, will be able to capitalize on those shifts. Right? So, this is a Chinese proverb. If you want to be wealthy for 1 year, grow wheat. If you want to be wealthy for 10 years, grow trees. If you want to be wealthy for 100 years, grow people. And my not advice, but my suggestion, my friendly, how can I say not advice, so I don't take it in a condescending pattern. My suggestion: would be that China is doing a wonderful job at the education, but I think that job could definitely be further improved. To teach kids new skills, new competencies, to teach kids that would certainly position them to be able to compete against anyone else in the world. That would be one of the key things. Interestingly, education is the only thing that nobody can ever take away from you. See, whatever is up here, nobody can take this away from you. If you have a nice car, Mercedes or Aston Martin or whatever, you can get into an accident. It can be done in 2 minutes. No problem. If you have expensive jewelry, someone is going to steal it, it can be taken away from you. The only thing that nobody can ever take away from you, it's whatever is up here. Fair enough. Therefore, thank you. Therefore, I think it's extremely important to focus on education, to focus on development, and then good things are gonna come out of that. Like this one, I'm briefly going to talk about the triple P's. In the past, the corporate world was dominated by one thing. And in a sense, a little bit not so nice, but in a sense, I'm going to say this. China is also, so the one thing that dominated the corporate world in the capitalist world was what? What's the one thing that's at the forefront of the thinking of any corporation? Profit. Thank you. See, that's why he's the expert. Is it not?
Yeah.
And in a sense, China is also becoming very materialistic. China is also becoming profit-driven. In a sense, not in a whole sense. In a sense. So I think we need to focus on 3 P's. Profit is only one of them. The second, and I think probably the most important one, is people. Profit, people. And third, also extremely important, is planet. Planet. We are living on one piece of rock. If you look at this piece of rock from the moon, it is that big. And yet, because we are separated by national borders, by a few oceans and so on and so forth, we think we are so far apart from each other that whatever we do doesn't have any incidence or any impact on other countries. Not so anymore. When I grew up in the 70s, in school, I used to learn geography. And I used to learn about China. And very, very honestly, when I was learning about China, it seemed to me exactly the same way you are thinking today about Mars.
Yes. Wow, really? So far?
Absolutely, probably even further.
Really?
There was no way in my thinking, in my youth, that I will ever be going to China. It was so far apart. It was such a different place. It was like going to Mars. Not going to the moon, but it was like going to Mars. And yet today, I'm here in front of you, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So the whole world is changing. We're becoming what we call the global village.
Yes.
We are now interacting with each other in so many ways. We have WeChat. You don't have WhatsApp, but that's okay.
Some people have.
Some people do. VPN. We have email. We have instant communication. Now you can communicate with anyone. Video, without any paying. Not even forget about 1 yuan. 1 jinmao. I speak quite a bit. I can say sheshe, pukache, buyanshe. Wo bushu jongwaren, wo shu janadaren. So I'm good. And the one thing, the one all important word that is in Chinese is Baizhu. Baizhu. Everything. And Pijo and Baizhu. And anyhow. So you understand now how important the connections are. When Ken was a kid, 6 years ago.
6 years old.
No, 6 years ago, you were a kid.
Ken is 1 year older.
He's just 1 year.
Older.
Actually, he's younger than me.
Okay.
Ken, would you, when you were a kid, would you have ever imagined that one day you can call someone at the other end of the world in the United States and talk to him face to face? No. Was that not science fiction?
Yes.
In the 70s or even the 80s,
Yeah, yeah.
to think that you can talk to someone face to face at the other end of the world was total science fiction.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So today, how much does it cost to make a WeChat phone to someone in the United States?
Maybe free.
Free. Not free.
Free. Yes.
Free of charges.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So now imagine how the world has evolved.